All right guys, as you can see, I got my puffer on. There's a little chill in the air, and that usually means one thing in the bass fishing world. Bass start focusing on bait. They move from a lot of bluegills, crayfish, and once it starts to get cold, a little bit colder, they start getting on bait fish hard, and that's what we're gonna try and do here today. This particular lake that we're on has a ton of natural bait fish in it. Shiners, fatheads, and as you can see here on the Lake Master, there's a lot of places for that bait to live. A lot of these deeper basins here. So we're gonna run around 2D some of these deeper basins where a lot of those bait fish tend to go once it gets a little bit colder, and those bass usually follow. So we're gonna run around the Lake Master here, check out some of these basins, look for some of that bait on 2D. Once we find some of that bait, hopefully drop the Mega Live and put a hurting on some smallmouth. But like I said, first let's run around and try and find some of that bait fish that we're talking about. But one thing that can really help you key in on where those bait fish are is paying attention to where the wind's been coming from. The past couple days, we've had a pretty predominant south wind. That's what we have right now. So coming into this little bay here, this is a north facing where we're heading right now. The wind is going to be pushing straight into this basin. And a lot of times those bait fish, that wind can really dictate where they're going to end up. That wind just pushes those bait fish to, wherever the wind takes them. And that's just kind of where they'll hang out. So that's something that right there, you can see some on 2D. We got a big blob of it right there. And that is exactly what we're looking for right there. Bait balls up high. You can even see there's some fish down low. That even might be a fish. I thought it was a little bait ball at first, but that might be a fish chasing that bait right there. We got bait down low. Do a little blue icon with the bait on it, just so that way I can kind of know that general region where I started seeing some bait. That can help too, again, just kind of pinpoint where these bait fish are hanging out, where they're at. They move a lot. That's just kind of the nature of the life of a little shad or a little shiner. But across the country, whether you're up north or down south, a lot of these bait fish tend to act the same. We'll see if the bait is definitely a little bit more prominent towards where those fish can kind of trap them and corral them, which is exactly what we're seeing here. Just went a little bit further in the basin here, a little bit closer to these humps and points, this big flat here where those smallmouth can ambush that bait, and boom, tons of shiners right there. There's one right there. Look at him hanging out by him. Yeah, that is what you like to see. That is textbook finding bait 101 right here. Oh, that's fun. That was sweet. I was just messing with one. We saw one right under the boat. Sure enough, dropped it right down on him, and as soon as he started to engage on it, started pulling way right under the boat, and he just couldn't stand it. That's a solid one too. Come here. Come here. Wow. They're feisty critters. There we go. That's a good start. Lean and mean, man. Smallmouth on bait. There's that little mooch just pinged right in the top of the dome where he should be. That is a beauty. Out here chasing bait, chasing shiners around. Doesn't get much better than that, man. Get her back. Just mushed it. That was sweet. That was sweet. Gosh, it's so dang fun. Chasing around with the minnow. And as you can see here, there's my icons right there where I dropped those just for some reference of the bait. And we are seeing tons of it. That's one thing too when trying to find bait fish. And when you do find them, there's usually a lot more than what it looks like on 2D. And you'll see that on the Mega Live here. There's just bait everywhere. Not a super big one by any means. Come here. But fun nonetheless. The smallmouth, man, they're so feisty, and when you get the right presentation in front of them, the right minnow, find the right size and everything, they usually house it pretty quick. We're seeing that here today with that little mooch. It's just such a perfect little shiner imitator. Again, a lot of what we're seeing here, just lots of natural shiners. Up here in the north, we have a lot of shiners that are 2-4 inches. They don't get super big. So something in that size, that's a little 3.5-inch bait. Again, just perfectly imitates those shiners and just drives those smallmouth nuts. Oh my gosh. And it is a nice one. Gosh. When they free wheel like that, oh my gosh. And that is a pretty solid one. Gosh, that's so fun. Oh, look at that, he's spitting up shiner. There you can see it, exactly what they're chewing. Oh my gosh. That is so dang fun. Oh, look at her. The mooch just piped. Oh my gosh, that's fun. Giggling, man. It's got me giggling. Gosh, that's one. That was a good one there. Saw him kind of submarining through the bait and bombed one out to him. He got eyes on it, and in that clear water, when they lock in on that thing, they just rock it up and smoke it. It's so fun. Let's get it back. So they say match the hatch, and that right there I think is doing a pretty good job. As you can see at 3.5 inch, it's like the perfect size, and that's just a common shiner again up north. This is what a lot of our smallmouth feed on. They're from Minnesota all the way out east. A lot of these natural lakes have shiners in them, and that's a main forage for smallmouth. But this also just goes across the board to spotted bass down on the Coosa. I did a bunch of that in college going to school down there. All the way out east when you have herring. This type of fishing, this whole system just plays across the whole country. You've seen it just kind of run the tournament scene the past couple of years. And that's the cool thing about it. This sort of deal just, there's some nuances once you start to get in different places, but when it starts to get cold, the bass just get on bait fish, plain and simple. And these are just some things to definitely keep in mind when you're trying to target these bass that are chasing down bait fish. I just want to show you guys kind of what we're looking at here on Mega Live and what really is all down there. It's pretty incredible how much more meat is hanging around for these fish than what it looks like at first. You know, we saw those couple of blobs of bait on 2D, and like I was saying, there's usually more there than what it seems, and you're seeing it right here. I mean, just bait fish. I mean, this is a huge ball of bait fish. It goes from the boat all the way up to 70 feet, and it pans 30, 40 degrees. I mean, that's just tons and tons of bait. And now we're just hammering on the quest, putting it on high speed, looking around for these fish. Again, they're active, they're moving like crazy, and I think it's important for you to do the same when doing this thing. Trying to put as many miles on as you can, looking for them, keeping the troller hot, keeping her spinning, just looking for them. That's the beauty of the Mega Live too. I keep it at about 100. That's usually the range I like to keep it at. Just that way I keep that good image, and it's easy for hitting fish, easy for reading fish. Sometimes if I'm really running and gunning, I'll bump it out to a 130, 150 just to get a good look, and then, oh, I see some bait out there. I'll drop it back down to 100, and then I'll start picking stuff apart again. So there's a good look at exactly what we're doing here. It's not a super complex system. Again, find the bait, drop the troller, start looking around with the Mega Live, and you're gonna find some bass. Bobbing around back there. Drop back on them, and that's why it's nice too, or it's important to pan around when you're doing this stuff and constantly just trying to keep an eye open, trying to see where you can see some. That one was a little ways back, and all of a sudden I panned back and oh, saw a little apple floating there. Another nice one. Drop back on them and let it sink down to them. That's another thing that's super important when doing this minnow deal, is trying to keep the bait above them. This is totally just a reactionary deal. So if you drop that bait below them, most of the time they're gonna lose engagement. That's a solid one, real nice one. Again, just keeping that bait above them, pulling it away, and just getting a reaction strike out of them. It's super important when throwing this minnow, making them commit. A lot of times they'll just kind of follow like that one was. I kept pulling away, popping it, and he just jumped on it, had to grab it. Another good one. Get it back here. Alrighty, so just gonna give you guys a rundown of rod, reel, line, bait, jig head. The whole system is pretty simple. It's definitely nothing to overcomplicate for sure. Messing with jig head size is the only thing that I really change in this whole setup. Sometimes they want a super heavy jig head. moving that really quick and get a reaction strike out of them. But today definitely seems like the lighter one, being able to keep it above their head. Sometimes it's taking a little bit to entice them in this clear water, so that lighter jig head. This is an 1/8 with the 1/0 and that 3.5-inch mooch. Pairs up pretty dang well. Just gonna show you guys how I rig this before I tie this jig head on. This is a nice little trick. I know Gussie's shown this trick before with these baits that are real stretchy. It's super nice. You can pull that bait up above the line tie there. Helps you definitely get 1, 2, 3 more fish out of the bait. So just kind of size that up. I like to do that before I thread it on, just that way I know where to make that exit point. Grab that bait like this, thread it on. You want that bait to be as straight as possible. Again, this is something that, you know, it's getting a lot of pressure now, so these fish are getting pretty smart to these baits sometimes, so making sure that your bait is just rigged perfectly. That way it's swimming as straight as possible, looks as natural as it can be to those fish. Super important to rig it super straight. So I have that bait, again, super streamlined there. She's on straight. I like to just take another jig head there, snag a little bit of that top end there. Again, I want to get it right in the middle so that way you don't mess with that swim at all, and then just pull that forward. And sometimes it can take a little bit of messing around, but you can see there, pull that up and over, make sure that line tie gets in there, pop that forward, and boom. There you got a little bit of the jig head kind of hanging onto that line tie. It's not much there, but it really doesn't take much to get that bait hanging on there. Again, this stuff is so stretchy and durable. And then tying this to my fluorocarbon leader, I like to use 12-pound, super strong. I don't have to worry about knots breaking. I always go with an 8-pound braid. Again, an 8 to 12-pound fluorocarbon leader for the rod. This one here is a 6'9" medium. A few key things with that 6'9" medium. I like that length for hitting these fish. That real shorter rod is really nimble, especially when you're doing stuff where all of a sudden you see one behind the boat, boom, you can just flick back on them. And it just really seems to help with accuracy. If you have too long of a rod, then you're kind of bean pulling it, you know, and you're not very accurate with it. So that 6'9" to 7-foot range is what I think is about perfect for throwing minnow baits like this. And that medium is really nice for driving that hook home. It's got a good backbone to it. So if you're hitting them at, 70, 100 feet, it's got that good backbone, but that tip, you can see that rod has a really quick tip there. That really helps with getting the action on the bait, especially when you're just barely popping it. If you're trying to just get that bait to kind of swim, or if you're popping it hard to get it to roll. It's almost like a jerk bait where that rod kind of has that little bit of, snap back to it, I think, when you're trying to get a bigger bait to roll, So having a rod with just a little bit of tip, good backbone, again, 6'8" to 7 foot is kind of the sweet range that I like. It's different for everybody. It all kind of comes down to personal preference. And as far as the reel goes, I like anywhere that's a 25 to 3,000. This here is a 3,000. Those size reels just have really good drags in them. Plus they're just a good size. Again, this is so much hand-to-hand combat style, so too big of a reel can kind of get in the way, but that 2,500 to 3,000 size, again, keeps everything pretty compact, keeps everything together. And again, it's really nice too with that bigger spool for getting good casts when you're trying to hit fish out at 70, 100. All just kind of completes the setup altogether. Oh my gosh. Boy, when they get buddied up, that usually, that is game over. When they start to get some competition involved, like that one there, that first one saw it, kind of was meh about it, and then his buddy got involved, and as soon as they see one start getting it, it turns into, well, I want that before you get it, and next thing you know, you got a bass in the boat. So dang fun. Oh my gosh.